Mabrika, Rahubat, Shalom, Salam, Assalamu alaikum. 1 second. How's everyone doing? So I wanted to continue on. Yesterday, my fire alarm started going off. They were cooking, and they kind of like let smoke get up into the fire. Alarm said went off, so I had to stop the stream. And then I just started doing other things. But anyway, just wanted to continue on. But before I start, let me read this affirmation. Where is it? Add it here somewhere. Let's see. I picked this up anymore. That's not it. Jesus. What did I do? There it goes. All gratitude is due to you, O the guardians of all the knowledge, the guards that stands to protect us from of all the knowledge, creators and sustainers of life, the guardians of all the knowledge and sustainers of life. It is your decree that no one can deny, for where any of us, when you lay the foundation of the planet Earth, and we're going to go into that in a minute. You and all guardians parted a great illuminating light into two lesser lights. You had light and fire. Those are the two lights. So anyway, starting from where we left off, right? And so in the other podcast, we was talking about the biblical narrative. And the reason why I brought it up because it still plagues, it's still in the minds of our people. And I'm not by any way discrediting religion and that particular school of thought, by no ways. However, I do stand firm to say you can believe in your card that'll take you to your destination. Have belief in that, and not know there's a wheel loose. Very important, that Sufi saying, because a lot of our people are in this sunken place, which is based on beliefs, and all these stories they're being bombarded, they're being lied, these libraries, and they bury you into this sunken place. And so part of the solution, how do you get out of sunken place, is by knowing where you at, first of all, and finding your way out. Find your way out and keep moving, because these are schools of thoughts that can be notches on your belt or jewels. You can go in the box, take the jewel, and go into the next box, or keep going. Keep going. Don't get stuck in one. You know what I'm saying? A good person is a good person, and no matter what school of thought you're in. And that's spirituality as opposed to religion. And so, I'm not telling people not to go to church, because you may find fellowship there, you may find help there, and people of like-minded, whatever, and you may have some type of business arrangement there, or you may be invested, but to go there just to listen to a pastor speak, and you're not allowed to ask questions, and your soul is at stake here, your energy, that currency is at stake here. You're putting your energy into a man that sits up in a pulpit, the puppet master, and throwing all of this narratives at you, and don't even know, doesn't even go into the scriptures, that script, and don't know the backstory, doesn't even want to let you know the backstory. It's like they're putting wool over your eyes. And this is what our people are invested in. They're sunken in, So I'm not one to walk around with the Bible. I mean, maybe years ago, when I was studying. But I might want to walk around the Bible and hear everybody with biblical passage and that verbiage. I'm not one to do that. That's 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 not me, you know. But what I do is I examine, I use a critical thinking, examine, deductive reasoning, recognize the logical fallacies in a lot of these schools of thoughts, especially people that speaks the narratives. So once again, the scripture is a script, and if and I advise our people to learn about script writing, screenplays, script writing. Learn about writing because these are literal work. This is logos. These are writings, a script, a translation, right? And a script has characters. When you tell a story, it has characters. So you could build a character's grid and give these characters their personalities and characters and traits, right? And then you have plots. You put them in plots, scenes, and plots. And you have a location, which is part of the plot. Where is the story located at? And that's the biggest thing about this. Where is it located at? So if you start off with the Old Testament and you start off in Genesis, it tells you, it specifically gives you a location, a geographic area of where the garden and Eden and the garden, where this is located. It doesn't hide it. It's telling you there. And then when you get a map and you map it out and you see the Tigris, Euphrates, the Payson, Gazon, when you see these rivers and you map out the area, what do you think you find? You find this geographic area which was known through the times as many names. Mesopotamia, Babylonia, Sumeria, right? And today's day and time, that area is known as Iraq, which is Uruk. Uruk in the tablets, Uruk is Iraq. It's still the same. Then you got Iran, which broke off into Iran. You got Turkey, you got Syria. This is the area all the way to Ethiopia and ancient Kemet. This is the area that is mapped out.
So it's important to know this because you have archaeologists that go and to verify the stories and to verify and to seek out these stories and the location and start unearthing the land and looking for artifacts. They found artifacts. They do this all over the world. Archaeologists, and then you have anthropologists. Archaeologists find those bones, and the anthropologists come and examine those bones. You got surveyors in there mapping it out to make sure this is the area that we need to be invested searching. This is real. And so in this area, they found these ziggurats. They look like pyramids. They found pyramids, ziggurats, temples, and they found tablets, cuneiform tablets, and writing statues, writings on the walls. They found this, and they documented it. They even took some of this into the museum. Museum all around the world have these artifacts, these big statues, this culture that came, ancient culture that came from that area, which validates certain things to the Bible. See, they left these backstories out and just simply gave you a translation of a translation, a translation, put you in a trance. So now you have belief, but you don't have the knowledge. You don't have the know. 'Cause once you know, you are free from that belief because now you know. Validate it. Now you know. So again, I suggest Bible concordance because you go into the Hebrew, which you get closer and closer and closer. If you can get into the cuneiform, all good. Then you get into Zacharias Sitchin, his works of these tablets that they translated. But then if you can go into the cuneiform and go into the concordance of that language, because a lot of these language has concordance, especially ancient language has a concordance, has a reference, and traces the root of the word, the etymology of the word. And I know it might seem like it's a lot. Oh man, I don't need to, I just want to believe. But that's a cop out. That's a cop out. Because you're going to get stuck in that sunken place. You know? So, we spoke about these different scrolls, the scrolls and tablets and writing on the walls, which are the guide that man had documented and left behind. So for the future, to know what went on and what mistakes not to make. When you look at these tablets, it has a story also, a narrative. The Illuminati, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh. Who is Gilgamesh? Tammuz, and you have all these characters within those tablets that became characters that you see in the biblical narrative today. And that's screenwriting. I could build a character based on multiple characters. Like, for instance, The Godfather, Vito Corleone in The Godfather. There was no Vito Corleone, but that character was based on characters and stories of, for instance, Angelo Bruno, the docile Don, Vito Genovese, right? Giancana, all these different Godfather or mobsters. Godfather became a character, Vito Corleone, and then they manipulated story, different stories, different things that happened to them. They put it in they modeled his character according to the. So you can have multiple character personalities in a script that is based on that can create one personality, and that's script writing. And that's what you see in the biblical narrative, these characters, because it's translated from translation, and these characters from these tablets formed another character that they speak about in this new script, this new movie, this new script, this new scenario, which is called the Holy Bible narrative. And we're going to go into that deeper at another podcast when we talk about Jesus Christ and the personality and the character of who was Jesus Christ and how they formed this character and personality from the works and the documents of other messiahs. Yeah. But anyway, where we left off was we were talking about the ethereal beings, these light beings. They call frequency beings, light beings, because it's another dimension. These light beings, these highly evolved, what they call these highly degree of high quality, these light beings, ethereal beings, and how they were able to incarnate into an avatar body, into the physical body, These personality and characters was able to shape the soul. They were able to house the soul and the body. These character personality we call ethereal beings, which are the Elohim. Remember that. Ilah, El, Elu, Elohim. The realm, the physical realm magistrates. They were judges and magistrates. They were highly of high statures. And so when we speak about all these different etheric alien beings coming and this through this planet, and this is documented in different cultures. The Hindus documented the beings that came from Nirvana or from the Anchurian constellation and the planet Nirvana. When you go into the Hindu Vedas, you hear this. This is their documentation, their story of these extraterrestrial beings that were able to come down and manifest into a physical form. So you have the Palladians in the constellation of Andromeda. You have Palladiums, and you had the Aldebarans, the Germans are the Aldebarans, and the English, the Palladium. Excuse me. This is documented. And when you go to the Maya and you go into the Aztecs and the Maya and the Olmecs, and you go into the Doggins in Africa, and then in ancient Kemet and through Sudan, you got the Neterus. These are stories, documents of their higher quality beings, these extraterrestrial beings. Their ancestors. So if you got this garden, you got this landmass, Ganawa, right? And or it's been sectioned out by different groups of extraterrestrial from the Confederation, the Galactic Confederation that came into this earth and came on this planet because this planet was a station. A lot of ships was coming down and just to power themselves. A lot of shit and the mining of the gold because gold was important. The gold was good in those lands and they needed the gold. And then we'll go into another story, at another time of why they were using the gold. Gold is a good conductor. Gold is good protector. It's a conductor. It has a lot of other properties. But the gold that was for it talks about in Genesis that the gold in that land was good, so they had and they had an understanding and they knew and they had knowledge of what gold was and how good it was and bad gold and when what gold was ready to be extracted. They knew this and they knew where to find it. They knew where to mine it. So it was happening all over. Now, this is the thing. Not only did they mine gold, not only did they mine the inhabitants, the Homo erectus, not only that, but remember, they had to eat. To sustain a physical body, they had to sustain themselves by the environment, right? And what happened to the environment of Earth? At one time, all the vegetation was good. Because it tells you there in Genesis. It was good. But then came what? Weeds, the poison in the plant world. Other plants started to flourish. that had effect. So this is going into botany, you know. But then we'll go into that at another podcast of what happened and how the spores of this satellite called the moon, the waters, the spores, how it affected the conditions on Earth, giving rise to the dinosaur age. But we're going to talk about that at another time. But for this conversation, the biblical narrative, we go into the tree of good and evil, which was a tree that was placed in the middle of a garden, right? Now, you have all of these extraterrestrial civilizations around you, right? And then you got this section here, that section there in the biblical narrative, right? You got these God, Elohim, protecting this garden. And you got all the garden in the east and the west and south, all these gates were other extraterrestrial civilization that was out living, planning, and living on the earth. So these Elohims had also not only did they mine gold, not only did they mine people, bodies, physical primates and animals. Not only did they do that, but they also did that with plants. They manufactured plants. They learned how botany. These were scientists too. They the first scientists who knew how to extract certain chemicals or certain substance from plants, because it tells you there in Genesis that he made the herbs and tree good for food, as food, right? In order to have that food, they either were what they call them? Yeah, vegans or plant based, right? Eating this raw, or they were cooking it. Obviously, they had knowledge of the fire, light and fire, because it speaks about in Genesis that these two lights were created, and you have fire. So they had the concept of fire. They had this concept of what you would say today, cooking. So guess what? What tree or plants do you know that grows mainly in the middle of, remember the geographic area we're talking about in the Middle East? You got Syria, you got Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, you got this area. What plant do you know flourishes and grow immensely, that's been growing there for thousands of years? I'll tell you. It's called the poppy plant. And the reason why biblical narrative say the apple that Eve ate, because the poppy fruit looks like a pomegranate apple in Asia. Because remember, this is Asia, another name they gave this area, Asia Minor. This fruit, the seeds were good for food. You could today eat bread made out of poppy seed bread. And if you know anything about the drug culture, if you're going to go take a drug test, you have to make sure you don't eat any food that has poppy seeds in it, because your urine is going to come out dirty like if you were on heroin. That's from experiences. So this fruit, the tree, this fruit was pleasant to the eyes, beautiful to the eyes. If you ever see the poppy plants, Google it. It grows in different colors, beautiful colors, and the flowers. It's a beautiful plant. And they use the seeds as seasoning for bread and seasoned food. And when you partake of the juice, that when you slit this poppy plant, it spurs out this liquid, this juice, opium, where opium comes from, and morphine, this juice, if you ingest that, well, first of all, that's some very pure stuff. You're out for the count. But imagine people living back then with a different diet when they partook of a variation of this plant because they used it for many things. In the medical field, they use this plant for many things, ancient time. It makes you observant. It makes you feel like you are wise, observant. It opens you up. Now, these Elohim had this was their industry, their culture. They had control, and they had the distribution right. Because it was medicine, it was seasoned, it was a commodity. At the same time, a lot of the tribes and a lot of the people in the tribes got hooked. And if you go into ancient studies on these other tribes, Watutsis and the Hindus, opium were hooked. Just look at those old Indian movies about the ancient times, and they were smoking what? Opium. In China, smoking opium. This was a huge, and to this day, it's a huge industry. I was watching a special on Fort Knox, and they said not only gold was in Fort Knox, but there was a large stockpile of opium and morphine in there because the military remember the American gangster? The military was using, to this day, they protect these poppy seeds and these families that grow these poppy seeds. They're trying to help them grow some other stuff so they can limit the amount, but they ship this to all different parts of the world. This plant was used since ancient time around the globe. And these ancient civilizations were hooked on this. So they came up with a plan, which, if you read the narrative of the script, to create Adam or Adamic, a people that were like priests, and the women were like nuns who were not involved and who were not touched. They were told, do not touch anything from the middle of the garden, the tree of good and evil. It's off limit. Off limit. And they were to show that you don't need this chemical. You don't need this in your body. You know what I'm saying? You don't need it. They were created from the Watutsi and the Hindu and the Anath and the Pygmy. The one they created that was one of the first, the Adamic, what they call Adam, the lifeblood, life, dam, blood in that language, Semitic language, was Zakar. Look at Genesis and go to Bible Concordance, and you see when he created male and female, he created Zakar and Nakawa, Nakaba. Zakar, the male one, Zakar was a priest. Nakaba was a priestess. And they were told not to partake in this. So when Zakar was born, he was born of a Watusi father and a Hindu mother. And then they brought together, they took the Watusi and the Hindus, created the Adamic race, which means red race, red earth, red blood, lifeblood, and they married the pygmy and the Anaf, which was where they got the women, the Kauba. So the Adamic male, like Zaka, was tall like a Watutsi, and his hair textures was different. Where like Hindus, ancient Hindus, has curly hair, and their skin tone is different. The Nakawa, the priestess from the Anaf people, the Khoi San, and the Pygmy were short. She was short. The priestess was shorter. And their skin tone was lighter. Because if you look at the Khoi, if you go to the Khoi or the San people, their pigmentation is lighter. They come from you have many different species of of the black race throughout Africa. Not everybody is jet. You got blue black, you got red black, you got yellow black, you got light brown black, you got brown black, you got many different shades throughout all of that land. So you got this priest group and this priestess, and they were told not to partake and to teach or to tend the garden and guard and teach these other civilizations and help them. In other words, like a drug counselor. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to put it in a modern scenario so you can see it. But what happened? And we can go into the biblical narrative and read it in Hebrew, and that's how we get it. That's how we're extracting this narrative, and also in the Sahuf, and also the writings on the walls. You know, they say that the serpent or the serpent race was very crafty, very elaborate. Because now you're having a different tribe coming in. And like Mardi Gras, the elaborate costumes and the elaborate feather. That's why you have a lot of these tribes, ancient tribes with elaborate dresses, and they will march and have a procession. Because that's how they got into the garden. So when the priest wasn't paying attention, the priestess, Nakawa, we would say even this time, she was amused by the music, the festivity of these serpent-like people that marched in with feathers and marched in. They were serpent-like people. And they were able to whisper into the women saying, hey, come join us. Come join us. We're having fun. It's all about fun. They tell you here. They tell you not to taste that. We're here. to get some of that because we're having a party, right? And they told you what? Oh, nah, man. You bug it. It happens to today. A crafty person whispering to an innocent person and let them know, oh man, they told you not to smoke that weed or not to use that heroin or not to take that LSD or whatever drugs. Man, you don't know what you're missing. There ain't nothing gonna happen to you. It's just an experience. And it open you up and you become wise like those Elohims. You become wise like them. See? It says it in the script in that script. But they singularize the stories. You see, that's the problem. Misleading also when you don't go into the Hebrew text or the concordance and see the words what it means, and you see how it's plural. So the word serpent is not really supposed to be. It's the whisperers, whispering to you and telling you, "Hey, listen, man. Here, take this. Have some. Ain't gonna happen to you. Happens to all of us, especially at that level of high school, the part of the school where you learn about getting high. They call it high school. You know what I'm saying? Or that whisper is always that person or or it could come from your family. The whisper is there, that personality, and gets you to do things that you might have not done it because your mother or father or someone told you, hey, listen, don't do that because this is gonna happen, and blah 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 blah, you know. So this happened. This is what the narrative, the Bible says that you're not gonna die. So what happened? The priest Eve got high. And when she got high and she learned the mannerism of the seductive mannerism, she went over to Zakar, Adam, and this for the narrative, Adam, and whispered to him. And Adam knew there was something wrong from the get-go, cause like, whoa, what did you do? I mean, cause she's here now seductively whispering to him, hey, take a bite of this. Take a hit of this, man. It's gonna make you feel good. And don't you like my body that you want? So her character changed. And according to the biblical narrative, Adam felt sorry and said, well, he also partook it. And they started getting high. And you know how it is when you start getting high with your mate or start getting high with female people, you'll hide in places so that nobody can see you. Back in the day, you used to go to the schoolyard, in the back of the schoolyard, smoke some weed, get high, and drink some beer and get high. Take a hit of coke, hide. Not out in the open, you hide. So in the garden, they hid. And when the Elohim were in the garden, they noticed something was wrong. No longer they're coming to us and greeting, they're hiding. They're doing something. And we're in that narrative right there. But then you ask, how was those serpent like were able to entice the woman? Because he showed, those whispers whisper vanity, show her another lifestyle that she was not trained to know. So it became, even in today's day and time, when you have a young daughter or something, and then, or you go to the club, you see the woman being attracted by the one that has what? Nice dress, the baddest car. Pimping. They call it pimping. These tribe of whisperers were pimping, were pimps, dressing and elaborate, gayish, and that all enticed it. Eve, she got enticed it, and they show her like you show a woman some gratitude and acknowledge certain things, about her hair. You act gayish. Oh, that's a nice color on you. It looks good in your hair. Oh man, you kick it to her like that, and eventually she's gonna fall in, and that's when they introduce the drugs. So that's a narrative of the Bible. That's taking it again from reading it from the Hebrew word, from the concordance, and also thinking, and also the other scrolls that tells it more specifically, okay, and also experience, because we're experiencing this to this day. Now, I'm not in by any way telling you, well, yes, I'm telling you that what's in that narrative in that Bible is misleading because there's misinformation. It's not giving you the whole story, no backstory, anything. But when you know these, the backstory, and you know the location, and you know about that culture, and you experience certain things, you get to know, you become wise, wisdom, because that is knowing what's right and wrong in the history of things. You gain that wisdom, and that's through experiences and through critical thinking and logical thinking, and recognizing flaws in reasoning, then the deductive and deductive reasoning. But you're invested in writing, you're invested in script, and you get to see how it all fits in our lives. You know? So this story was also told from a perspective of ancient Kemet too. In Egyptology, you see it on the walls of Kemet, and you see it in Sumeria, because in this area, that was what was going on. And then a lot of the times they were traveling, because the area, what was known as Utla, where they say Atlantis, which is Utla, was where the islands, the Caribbean islands, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, that area there, and Florida and Atlanta, that area there, with a little bit of Africa, of some part of Africa, and then Greenland. There was no Atlantic Ocean. This was a big landmass, a bland spot. This was called Utla, a vacation place. So they were traveling and telling their story to these parts, you know. And in turn, the Atlanteans, when that fell, then went into Kemet to teach, because that's going into the Emerald Tablets, that narrative in that story. So there's a lot of tablets and stories that you could put the puzzle together. You know what I'm saying? I'm just here to let you know this exists. This is what it is. This is that narrative. And for anyone who wants to have a discussion with me on that, then I'll give you my email. We can first get together on the email like that, and then we can go on from there and share. And there are books, that are out there. But this is the narrative, is to let my people know that, hey, listen, there's a lot more, and there's a difference between belief and knowing. Don't get so caught up in I just believe and believe and believe and trust. Don't get caught up in that, because when they flip the script on you, then you're put in a place as you're stunned. Now they got you, control you. They could tell you what to do, and that's what this whole COVID-19 is all about. The COVID-19 covert, a disguise operation that is dealing with the id, and the id is the part of your consciousness which is for survival, and the flight, the survival mechanism. And then 19 is the beginning and the ending. So it's letting you know right there that they're telling the COVID 19 is about ushering the fourth industrial revolution. It's about telling the globe, the people of the world, what to do, how to live your life now. We're switching into the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth Reich is starting to roll out its programs, its initiative through the world nation, to the United Nations, through that, through the cabal banking system, through all these industries, they're rolling out a plan, an initiative that's being laid out and telling you how things are going to change. People are fighting back, yes. People are fighting back, yes. And that's what's going on. But the dynasties that's been here for like 10,000 years, those dynasties know that their world is kaput, ending. They're being revealed. That's the whole idea with Jeffrey Epstein's and all that. Now they're revealing the fact that did work for the Mossad, which Israelis. And Israel's where? That same area where the Babylonian Empire was, okay? The same area where the Greeks control and the Romans. This is a dynasty that goes way back. And even the Bible narrative speaks about it. You got the Babylonian Empire, then raised to the Greek Empire, the Roman empires, and from the Roman Empire into the present European Empire. And that European Empire splattered out. Israel splattered out the United States, and the European, the British, they splattered out. And though that rule, it's over. It's over. And we're in the gridlock, so we don't see it, but we see all the events, all the cars being stuck in the traffic. But little by little, as we move, we're gonna see the accident at the end of that gridlock, and we're gonna see that that world of the cabal, that world, the Babylonian. That, a lot of these, like in Hollywood, they were so invested in the Babylonian occult because even if you read the scriptures, right, that script, that narrative, and you go reading on to Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, in that area, you see the practices and the culture that they had. Some of those Elohims were what? Carnivorous. They ate flesh. The story of Cain and Abel was that Abel grew. What was it? Yeah, Abel grew the plant. He planted a yard plant and brought that as an offering. Whereas, or was it the other way around? Abel, right, right. Abel grew the livestock and offered that, and Cain was the plant. And what happened is that the Elohim favored the smell of what? The flesh. And that pissed off Cain. That's what Cain slew Abel. And if you read on Leviticus, and for instance, Abraham, the story of him when they told him to sacrifice his son to test him, but they've been sacrificing babies. This is all a Babylonian. This is all this dynasty. This is their playbook. They're letting you know right there. So now you got in today's day and time, they still practice that, but they took it to other forms like adrenochrome, aborting fetus of babies and making this concoction and this, adrenaline concoction. They took it into another area because we're in modern time, you know. So these are their practices. of human trafficking and human sacrifice, pedophilia, all of this comes back from the Babylonian Empire. And the Greeks were huge on that. And the Romans, huge on that. And the European Empire in the beginning is now huge on that. That's the culture. That's done. It's been revealed. Their lifestyle has been revealed. People don't even want to touch that anymore. They don't live there. The indigenous people don't live their life like that in certain indigenous people. The people of Atlantis didn't sacrifice babies and live like that. They were about the light. They were about gaining their inner strength through the light body, through the sekums or chakras. So the sekum in Metaneta, those points of energy, wheels, opening. They were more into those practices of spirituality, of strengthening your character and personality, right? They weren't about child pedophilia, sacrificing children, eating aborted babies. They weren't about all that. That's the Babylonian. That's the biblical narrative. That's why we have to be careful because they put us into the sunken place so they can practice their culture and their way. You got to peep that game. That's what they do. And these cabals, these big, huge parties they give with mannequins and babies and they eating and cakes, and they're mocking. This is their custom. They follow behind the Satara, the Adronis Baphomet statue that has the hand like that and the hand down here and the crescent and the five-pointed star. Because those are all Babylonian culture. And the what is it? The staff with the energy of the two snakes, energy, the medical profession where they is based on what? On they have a stockpile of opium and morphine. When you go in the hospital, you have pain. The first thing they do is shoot you up with morphine or opium or Dilaudid. That's from experience. That's what they do. You get hurt in the battle, they're gonna shoot you up with morphine because this is their culture. The fentanyl, they're synthetic, but the thing is, in modern time, they became they created the fentanyl and mixed that in with the heroin. Made more potent. And there was an opiate a pandemic before this COVID pandemic. It was the opiate pandemic, but they got caught. Those doctors and those industries, pharmaceutical industry. Because that also is the 6 P's. You get the 5-pointed star with the 5 P's. If you add another P for pharmaceutical, now you got the 6-pointed star. That is different than the true 6-pointed star, the Star of David. That's different. They take the symbols and they use it to benefit and create their narrative and create their empire by using those symbols. It's some real shit. These black nobilities, these families that trace their way back into Rome, Vatican, the Jesuits, and the Mossad, and all these groups of of agencies and organizations and Illuminati. These are all different fractions of this whole system that comes out of what? That Babylonian system. Babylonia, the Code of Hammurabi, the justice system, and then you had the Greek, the universities, all Greek sororities and fraternities. The Greeks were big in universities and created that, and then you get into the Roman Empire, the Philosophy came out of the Greeks, and then the Roman Empire, the politics. You know, the Babylonian had the penal system and those codes, those justice and law, and on and on and on to finally psychology, psychology of the European was invested so much in psychology. Sigmund Freud, their father, Sigmund Freud, and psyching the mind and learning of how to all these different techniques and experiment on the mind that came by way of the last empire. And that's what they perfected, the empire, the psychology, that P out of the five P's. And this is the stamp that they put on all when they colonize or they take over an area, they put that stamp. And this is the system that they're going to rule over the people. And they're going to bury you in each one of those points. They're going to bury you because they're going to create the libraries. And they're going to bury you with so many ideologies of each one of those principles. Until you can't see yourself out. And the only way is by what? Reaching out and the claw to reach you out of the muck and mire, what they call the Christ consciousness of the Son of Man, which we'll go over that some other time. But right now we're at the part right now in Genesis, and then we took it a little further into Leviticus about the Babylonian Empire and about that culture. This is what you're reading. This is what you're intaking. So you have to be careful when you intake a lot of this, and it's confusing, misleading in your mind, and now it got you thinking all crazy, all amok. And you have to be pulled from that muck and mire. You got to be pulled out and put into order. And you get to know. You got to get to know so that you can free yourself and keep going and free yourself. You know? So I mean, I just kept it. What a minute! It's only 58 minutes, or about an hour. I just, hope that's clear, man. I hope that's clear. I just gave you a little bit of myself, man, and self being my standards, values, standards and qualities. It's your self-worth, your standards and your quality. Hey, remember I told you I was gonna tell you about the when a question was asked to this master teacher, and they asked him, how do you master the self? And he says, well, if you roll a piece of paper, right, and you put that paper down and you burn it, when you get the feeling for that paper burning, when you feel for that, like if it was you burning, that's how you master yourself. I don't know if that's able if that's able to sink in, but that's speaking in the parable. But it's like yourself is your standards, your qualities, your standards, qualities, right? Values that you stand upon, their worth, right? You have to respect. To know the masters of self is that everything around you has a standard. It's part of your standard. It's part of your value. Everything around you. And when something is out of order or this value, and you feel for that, you affects yourself. To master that, you have to feel for that. and you have to, you have to extend. That's again the fifth dimension, expansion, and that is part of you. Your environment is part of you, and you have to be invested in protecting it, nourishing it, nurture it, protect it, guide it, guard it, you know, inspire it, breathe in and out, inspire yourself into it. That's how you master yourself, according to sacred teachings. And it makes a lot of sense to me, you know. So it's not that hard to master the self. It's just that sometimes we get bombarded by all these thoughts and stuff that we don't invest ourselves in mastering the self. But that's very, very, very important in terms of navigating, being around people. And people would already know when you think and when you master yourself. Trust me, people around you're gonna see the different. They're gonna know that this is a master of self because he mastered his standards, his values, his self worth. He mastered that, and he's going on and on and on. There is, once you master yourself, it just leads you to do other mastering and on and on and on. It's a change coming. People more speaking out, people more sharing, and that's all part of the fourth industrial revolution. When you look at it, it's the age of the internet, of sharing through the internet. It's the age of artificial intelligence, robotics, and in this case, the internet, being able to expand myself and come to you through a stream, which is a currency. Once you get enough stream content and this create a currency, then you use the bank to direct it and to protect it and to direct your currency. It's what a lot of people have done by streaming. You know, I'm just giving my shot. I hope more people um, subscribe, check out the script, subscribe, and create that content. You know, life is about sharing, caring. Sharing is caring. And I care for people. I care for humanity. When a person or being is against humanity, to me, that's alien. Now, you could be an alien and have empathy for the human race, true. But then you could be alien to this humanity, sense of humanity. You don't have any, you're not invested in the benefits of humanity, and that becomes obvious by your actions. So, I'm going to already end this. Um, so, we spoke about, these etheric, these light bodies, which are the Anunnakis. Oh man, one before I go, the last thing I want to say, people say, so what's the whole deal with Israelite, Israel? Well, you have to really, really, really define what is Israel. Because remember, Israel is not a person, a people. It is an event. An event. A lot of times what they do and put you in that sunken place is they identify you They put an ID in you. They appeal to your id by calling you a place that is an event of the place. For instance, when you look at the word Puerto Rico, it's mean rich port. It's not talking about the people. Maybe covertly, they might be talking about the women and they want to dock their ship in there and birth. That's colonization. You could look at it like that. But in the broader sense, it's not described. So, but that's an event also. It's not describing the actual people. You know, Cuba, on the other hand, Cuba is Taino, and that's the way they Cuba. That's what they call themselves. But Santo Domingo is a event, a dominance. The Santos dominating. That's an event. Now Haiti, that's Taino. Haiti, which means blackness, that's Taino. And the original word was Quisquiabola, is what was called that island. And then they changed it to Española. And then they changed it to Santo Domingo and Haiti, divided. Puerto Rico, right, from Puerto Rico, from Borinquen, Boricua, Borinquen, people of the high, what they call people of the valiant high place, or the valiant high waters, or the valiant ones. You know, so Israel, when you look at Israel and you read the scriptures, it was an event. Israel means to ascend, ascend and descend, ascend. El was the highest deity that was the Canaanites called El, or in that area, Mesopotamia called El, was the highest. Remember El? And then you had Ilo, and then you got Anunaqi. Well, El was the highest. So when Jacob fell asleep or astral project, he was astral projecting and he was seeing, viewing these these Anunnaki ascending and descending craft, descending and descending into El and back. And this was a astral projection, a vision he had. And then he named that place Peniel because he understood as astral project was a pineal gland, was another reality. And therefore he named himself Israel, or he narrated that Israel, and it stuck with him. You know, and the Elohim, that the magistrates, the ambassadors, the magistrates, um, the narrators changed it from Jacob to Israel. So when people ask me, "Are you an Israelite in Israel?" In the true sense of the word, I have astral project, but I wouldn't say that I saw El in that culture. It would have been considered El, my higher self. And yes, I ascended and descending. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, I could say yes. But I'm not the 12 tribe. No, I don't prescribe to the 12 tribes, because when you read the narrative in the scriptures, when you know something and you see in Kings, Second Kings 17 from 18 to 20, you see that that 12 tribes was annihilated. It's no longer, not even the tribe of Judah. Only the remnant of tribe of Judah was scattered through Ethiopia to the Sabah culture, to Ethiopia. They were scattered. But the other tribes were no longer. But now those 12 tribes of Ishmael, which Muhammad came through the tribe of Kedar, which is one of the 12 sons of Ishmael, Quraysh, the tribe of Quraysh, which is sons of Kedar, there were 12 of those principalities. And in today's day and time, they also got uh, um, scattered. So that's why you have this Abrahamic Brahma, who is Brahma. Brahma was the true name of this Ibri, who was the king, or the most high, the king of the Ibrahims. Because remember, Ibrahim, the suffix him, plural. So the Ibri was the Canaanites called them Ibri because they crossed over the Tigris, where they get the word Hebrew. Ibri, Hebrew. And the Hebrews were a plural, many, a tribe, a herd of shepherds called Ibrahims. But the one shepherd that there's a story about is Brahma, because he came from Chaldean Ur, which is a Sumerian, and Brahma also was in connection to the Hindu teachings, because a lot of these teachings in the Mesopotamia, Iraq, and all this Islam, and even in Israel, is of a Hindu origin, also a Hindu in there, because they were very invested on spreading their doctrine, which got into these people from Mesopotamia, Hindus. And they even look like Hindus. But the Hindus came in different stocks. You got white and to the dark of the dark. The black Hindus, what they call the untouchables over there in India, in the southern part of India. And then you had the Aryan races, which are Hindus that were ousted out of India or out of Samaria, went into and mixed in with the children of Nod, and mixed in on with the children of Nod, which is where Germany, in that area. That's why Hitler was so invested in finding the Aryan race, which is a Hindu concept. Because they were first studying the occult from the Philosophia Society with Madame Blavatsky. That was all Hindu text, verdicts, Verda text. So Brahma was a shepherd, or Brahma was a shepherd of the Ibrahim, who traveled and spread his doctrine or learned from the Kemetic priest Imhotep. And when Imhotep gave him his daughter Hajar, so that mixing created a new being, which Abrahamic faith, which was Ishmaelites. El Wahir, Ishmael. El Wahir. And then you had Jacob, who has not ascended to the El yet, until he had that astral projector and his name changed into Israel. So you had Ishmael and Israel, or El, pertaining to El Elyon, which sat in the throne of Elyon, which is a constellation. Elyon is a constellation, the 19 galaxy, I think. And so when you go on and on and on, you study this. I mean, I was taught by a master teacher, or a man that will invest in and study, and also study on my own when you investigate, because you can't believe what everything everybody say. You have to also investigate, and you got to put the pieces together. And I try very much to experience. I speak from experience. If I can't take what I read and adapt it and logically make sense of it through my personal experience or my deductive reasoning, then I leave it alone. It ain't for me. I can't. I'm not there yet. Until I'm able to take this body of work, this logos, this writing, critically think it, logically think it, apply all the logic, see if there's no logical fallacy. Then do the deductive reasoning. That's when you gain your overstanding, because you're gaining all these understanding to obtain that overstanding. And then if you cannot apply it and benefit from it and move with it, because that's where you get your reason, your wisdom from. See, you can collect knowledge, but it's not beneficial knowledge. A lot of these brothers are trying to validate the scriptures with a lot of this knowledge and a lot of Josephus and all these biblical from the libraries. These have truth. They trying, but it's all, it's you're burying yourself. How are you going to use it to benefit you and to create a substantial community amongst your people? Because, like I said, the Caucasian did it with Christianity when they in Vatican City and those big temples, St. Petersburg Cathedral, St. Patrick Cathedral in Midtown Manhattan. They were able to take that school of thought and was able to build a community and then center. They were able to build a center, build a the community. The Israel, the Russian Jews were able to take Israel, Judaism, and was able to do what? Go into an area, knock off the Palestinians, put and establish their temple. They're getting ready to build a temple there. And Trump is trying to help them build a temple there. Same thing with Islam, the mosque, with Mecca. These Arabs, they hijack your school of thought, in which is originated with the black race. They'll hijack it and build what? Monuments, and build a temple and build a city around that temple, a city state, and even a country. But the black Israelite or the black Christian or the black Muslim can't do that. So we got to leave it alone and create a new earth and a new heaven. We got to create a new and see if we can benefit from that and build a temple to that and build a city state to that. And which quickly, before I go, I want to, I was checking out some podcasts and about solutions and about building city state stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to talk about it later on. I'm not even going to go through it right now. I got to make notes on that. Because a lot of times they say, well, where's the source? Well, everything that I spoke to you, it's the source. The source is the biblical source, and it's the Hebrew source, and it is the ancient text. Because we could pull up those ancient texts and show you, right? And then we could pull up the Suhuf. If you go into the Islamic, where they had universities and Timbuktu, and they had these scrolls, you can go into these scrolls called the Suhufan. Even though they say it's lost, but they there. They just don't want you to dig deep into it. They don't want you to know. Because once you start knowing and you gain that knowledge, that wisdom, then you start building with it. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. That culture, in order way for the black, for us of African this or indigenous people, in order for us as a people to build and to better our life and to build, it's we have to define our culture, because so much a long time we had culture, especially like the Christianity became a culture. It became cultivated a certain nature, right? Muslim nature, the Israeli nature, is we no longer cultivate. So culture is the cultivating a particular nature. Well, we have to define what is the nature. You see, we were taken out of our natural environment. And I'm speaking in terms of the African side of me, right? And even the Taino side, because I'm in New York, born and raised in New York. We were taken out of our environment. So our natural environment and the way we cultivated that environment created a culture. But then you look at the black race today, especially here in America, they were taken out of the environment. And so what is the new environment that the black race is in? It's a city, what they call the jungle, the concrete jungle in a lot of places, right? It's in this jungle of what we call United States. So the culture, the nature of surviving, what they call the hustle and the surviving, and that nature of what we call, survival tactic is became our new form. I mean, we were surviving. You could be surviving in the jungle is a whole different nature and a whole different culture as to the city culture and in American culture. So how do we survive inside this landmass called America? So what is the nature? You have to define that nature and then cultivate that nature. And that's when you cultivate that nature. That's why I like the Kemetic nature, because Kemet, even though it's in Africa, was a city state and was concrete. They took the nature of the corals out there, the lamstones and all that, and they built their temples and they built an environment based on that. Stones and stuff. So that was their nature. So they built it, they utilized that and built. Here, what like I said, what's in our nature? What are the resources, natural resources that we have or we can attain here in this paradigm, and then cultivate that. When you cultivate that, now you have a bargaining chip to the world. Say, this is our culture. This is who we are. This is our language. We have to create a new language, our own language. We got to create our own communities, our own city states. We got it. You have to create that. And you got to keep going and keep fighting. They're going to try to stop it, but you got to keep going. You got to take the examples of the ones that came before you and keep going and on and on and on. It's it's a very, very complicated situation. But only the fearful, the ones that don't have any fear, and the warriors and the ones that are going to keep fighting. So let's keep looking for the solutions. I like the fact that some podcasts, like I like Dagger Squad lately. I mean, even though sometimes their content I don't dig it so much, but that's part of the solution. Sonetta is part of the solution because you're able to come together and iron out differences and touch those brain thoughts to make people think about what is happening around them. So eventually, when they wake up and they get out there, and you are a representative of your people, your race. That's one of the laws of nature. It's like you get one lion running around, he represents a body of lion, the genetics. One black man represents the whole black race. One black global man represents the whole global race as an African person all over. Because if I go into a neighborhood and I commit a crime and they say that black man did it, I represent my whole race. Then the next black man that walks, or a Hispanic man that walks into that neighborhood is gonna get jumped. He's going to get the repercussion of what I did. So we have to move and recognize that we are a representative of our race, of our people. And if you go on, of the human race, we are representative. You are a representative. So you have to act accordingly. You got to walk around accordingly responsible, saying that, man, what I do is going to affect my people. We got to put this in the minds of the children. Whatever you do growing up, whatever you do, wherever you walk, wherever you at, a representative, you are a representative, a part of the whole race or the whole group or the whole ethnic group or the whole, you're a part of the whole. You are a representative. And you have to think like that. In other words, I'm a representative first. I'm a representative of my family, right? My immediate family. And then comes my extended family. And then comes my tribe. And then comes my race. I'm a representative. If I go out there doing dirt and doing shit, it's going to affect my house. It's going to affect my house. It's going to affect my people. It's going to affect us all. So that's one of the laws of nature. That's one of the, yeah, I forgot what they call it, but I'll get you the name of that law. And that's one of the laws of nature. And when you read the nature of nature and you read, those scripts written by physics, but they're physics scripts that are natural critical thinking. And a lot of people think that's Alfred Uno, that brother Eugene, which I knew from way back, but it's very complicated. It's very complicated. Very, very complicated. I'm not even going to go there. That's my ace in the hole. So when they, because you have certain of our people that form groups and they're under attack. They want to attack everybody. They want to attack Dr. York. They want to attack this. They want to attack celebrity. They want to attack. They're on the attack mode, and they feel that that's their way of doing things. Well, anyway, you representing us in that part of us that is on the attack always. And it's the counteraction of a white supremacist when you're a black supremacist. Supremacy is supremacy no matter where it's at. It's supremacy. It has its flaws in that too, You got to be careful with that. But I practice right racism. I'm a racist because I'm invested in my race. I know my race, and my race is part of the human race, and I'm invested in that. So I become a racist. Not an ism, a racist, like a percussionist, a chemist, invested in that. And I practice the right one because when you invested in your people, but you don't use that knowledge to hurt people of other nationality or other, genetics, you don't use that for that. I use it to build my own. I don't have to use it to attack you. If you try to attack me, that's wrong racism. That's being a wrong racist. And I'll let you know you're a wrong racist. Why? Because you're trying to attack me. I'm trying to self-preserve just like you're trying to self-preserve. Let me build my own over here. You build your own over there. If you have something that I need and I have something you need, we can negotiate and barter. But that's as far as it goes. Anyway, peace. I love you all. And I'll think of what I'm going to talk on the next one. I tell you, I want y'all to come on once a day because I'm getting all this out and on. And the part that we're up to now, we're leaving the garden and we're going to stay, we're continuing on, and I'm just want to hear out there the different podcasts. I want to hear what are people thinking about, what's going on in that mind, because like I said, we need to get this straight. Okay? Peace. Listen.